All right, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I hope everyone's having a good day so far. Like Caitlin said, my name is Miss Ari and I come from Discovery Cube. And I'm here to talk to you today just a little bit more about what's in our water and the steps that are taken to make sure that our water is nice, clean, and fresh for us to use and drink every single day. I'm super happy to be here with the Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District's virtual open house to share with you some really interesting information about how all the water in your water district is treated and make sure that it's safe. Like she said, we do have an interactive presentation, so I'm going to be asking you questions from time to time. Please feel free to ask me a question in the chat or message the Q&A board and interrupt me. We're here to learn together, and the way that we learn together is by collaborating and interchanging ideas. All right, so like I said, my name is Miss Ari. I am here on behalf of Discovery Cube. We have two locations, one in Orange County and one in LA County, and we focus on hands-on science for students K through 8, but it's really great for the whole family. And I actually want to start today's presentation with a question. So I want to ask you, friends, where does your water come from? And I have a couple of choices for you. Does it come from groundwater, which is going to be water right now underneath your feet, the Canyon Lake, or the Colorado River Aqueduct? What do you friends think? Or maybe could it be all of the above? Does anyone have an idea of what it could be? Think about it. Where do you get all the water that you need to be happy and healthy? Ooh, I see something coming in the chat. We got two people saying here, it's, all of the above. D, final answer. We're going to lock it in. We're going to see what it is. Is it D, all of the above? And da-da-da-da. Boom, it is D, all of the above, my friends. I'm going to raise the roof for you, friends, because you got this answer right. And I'm super excited that we're dropping some knowledge bombs today. So it is D, all of the above. Your water district uses these 3 water sources to make sure that you have enough water to be happy and healthy. Now let's talk a little bit more about these water sources. I have some really cool pictures here to show you of these. So first we have the Canyon Lake. And the Canyon Lake water treatment plant is actually a really interesting way that water gets filtered. It's a surface water treatment plant. So they have a special component called an upflow clarifier that actually a lot of the filtration process takes place. We have something that's called coagulation, flocculation, and sedimentation, and this all occurs here first in this upflow clarifier, and then further steps are taken to clean, disinfect the water, and deliver it nice and fresh to your houses. We also use water from the Colorado River Aqueduct, and the Colorado River Aqueduct water comes from the Colorado River. We're not that fancy with our names, we're just kind of straight to the source. The great thing about the Colorado River Aqueducts is it enables us to share water with other people as well. And it lets us make sure that we have enough fresh water supply for us to be happy and healthy. And last but not least, it happens to be my favorite, which would be groundwater, which is our back basin groundwater treatment plant. And that's going to be water that's literally underneath your feet right now. So like you're sitting at home, you're having a good time, you're stepping on some soil, maybe covered with cement or paved over, but deep down underground, there's special spaces called aquifers where we can pump out water and deliver it to your houses. But before it's delivered to your house, especially here at the back basin groundwater treatment plant, they filter it using sanded anthracite, and then they use special coagulants. That means like something that's going to make different constituents kind of gather together, and it makes it easier to remove. Now, the reason that we have to clean and filter the water is because, like Martin was mentioning earlier, how people flush some things down the toilet. Well, sometimes people, unfortunately, and don't tell anybody I said this, but they litter. And they leave the stuff on the side of the roadways, and eventually the water is going to wash away and it's going to end up near our water sources. So because of that, we need to figure out different ways to remove these things. So we have physical materials like things that you would find on the street, like chip bags, bottles of soda, bottles of water. It looks like we even have some pieces of wood here that might have come from something that was broken and left on the side of the roadway. We have different chemical materials that might be present, like if your family and friends have ever used fertilizer or paint to, make the outside of your house look better. Those things there also can end up in our water. And the smallest, and sometimes might be the scariest, would be like biological components, right? Or materials. That's going to be stuff that is in our water because, there might be furry friends running around your neighborhood. And furry friends, well, they poop. And their poop is going to have some bacteria in it. And we want to make sure that the water that you are drinking doesn't have these biological materials. Now, what can we do, right, to make sure that our water is safe to drink? Well, first of all, is this water even healthy enough to drink? What do you friends think? Do you friends think yes? Do you friends think no? Or I don't know. What do you folks think? No? Okay, we have one participant that says, no, it's not safe enough to drink. Somebody else says, yes, it is safe enough to drink. So it looks like here we have an interesting question. And whenever scientists have questions about something, we use the scientific process to try to find an answer. So our question today is this water healthy enough to drink? Now, our turn now is to do some research. Now, I went ahead and did some research before everybody came today, and I learned about different steps that the Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District takes in order for our water to be clean and healthy. So we're going to be learning about these different steps, and then we're going to figure out if this water is safe enough to drink once it goes through all these different steps. Now, these steps do have a certain order, but it's going to be our challenge today to try to figure out that order. Right now, we're just going to explain it. So one of the first steps that I want to talk about is dissolved oxygen addition. And then we'll talk about something called sedimentation, coagulation, disinfection, and filtration. Now, some of these words might be new to you, but we're going to break them down as we go introducing them to him. So the first one, you might think, well, why do I need to add dissolved oxygen to water? Dissolved oxygen in water is actually an indication that our water source is very healthy. I actually did some research and they found that water sources that have higher levels of dissolved oxygen, people tend to think that they taste better. So adding dissolved oxygen into water helps it taste better. And not only that, speaking about it just in a scientific way, in terms of chemicals and the space they take up, we have H2O, that's just water. And then we can also have oxygen, O2 mixed in. When the H2O and the O2 mix in, the O2 oxygen takes up space. Because it takes up space, it doesn't leave any room for those other constituents that we talked about. Remember, like the physical, chemical, and biological, and that makes it a cleaner water source. So that's one of our steps. Remember that, dissolve oxygen. I have a review slide too, but go ahead and remember that. And then next is sedimentation. Now this one is a little bit tricky to describe, but I'm pretty sure some of you have seen it happen in real life. For example, you might have had, like, let's say you go to the beach and you grab a bucket of water, right? And then that water does have some sand in it. If you let the bucket sit for a while, those heavier materials, those particles are going to sink down to the bottom. You can actually try this experiment at home if an adult lets you. You can get a cup, you can put some water, and then you can put in some dirt, mix it up with a spoon, and you'll see the particles suspended in water just like this. And if you time it, give it some time, maybe like you can make observations like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I guarantee you, after a few hours, the water on top is going to be clear and the water on the bottom is going to have that small layer of particles. And then what your water district can do, they can just sweep away that bottom layer and transfer that cleaner water into a next step. So far we have dissolved oxygen and sedimentation. Next, it's coagulation. Now, the first time I heard this word, I didn't know what it meant. Coagulation, it's really tricky to understand, but I want you to think about how different things come together. So we're going to pretend that this here, as we're adding a coagulant, and what that coagulant is going to do is it's going to make all of these different particles bind together. Remember the same thing how Martin was talking that sometimes certain things you flush make it build up. Well, in Martin's case, we didn't want that to happen. In our case, we do. We want to remove those bigger particles. So we add these coagulants like ferric chloride, and then that coagulant is going to make these bigger pieces kind of stick to each other. You want to imagine like we're wrapping a big bow around it. And then now, because it's heavier, same concept that's going to happen that happened in sedimentation earlier, that's heavier stuff is going to sink to the bottom and we're going to be able to remove it, and then we're going to have cleaner water. Coagulation is a really fun way that we can really use chemistry to clean our water, because we can find out ways that we can use certain substances to make sure that all of the larger particles that we have get cleaned. Then we have disinfection. Remember how we talked about those biological materials? I'm sure you've heard about things in the news like, don't eat lettuce, it has this, or don't, be careful, wash your fruits and vegetables. Well, water being an excellent solvent, sometimes will also get little bugs in there or other bacteria. So what we do to disinfect it, we add different disinfectants that try to remove these biological materials like chlorine, chloride, and we try to make it so that that stuff doesn't end up in your body and make you sick. After this process, the water, let me tell you, it's super good, super pristine. I know I put it in my water bottle every day. It's totally safe to drink. Disinfection is a very important process, because if you want to think about it, do we have any new water on our planet? Like, can we magically make new water? What do you friends think? Let me know in the chat. Can we just like poof, make new water? Or is the water that we have on our planet all of the water we've had forever and ever? That's an interesting thing to think about, right? If we can't magically make new water, then we always have to be looking for ways for us to disinfect it, because a lot of the water, regardless of where it is in the water cycle, has probably been used before. All right. And then this step here that I want to talk about, it's probably a step that most of you are familiar with, filtration. Some of you might even have a filter in your house. You can have a main filter, or you can even have one of those smaller filters that you put in your refrigerator or inside of a pitcher of your refrigerator. What a filter does is it removes those last small pieces of constituents that we don't want in our water, and it traps them. So you want, the way I like to think about it, it's kind of like a blanket, but the blanket only lets pass through water, H2O, clean, fresh, pure. All the other stuff, all the other constituents gets trapped on the top of the blanket. And then all we can do is just change that filter, change the blanket, and none of that nasty stuff comes into our water. Now we have our 5 different steps. And I have a challenge for you friends today. Our challenge is to see if we can order these 5 steps. So I'm going to remind you of what the different steps are, and then we're going to try to go to a site where I made a little game for us to organize these and play together. So as a friendly reminder, these are not in order. Oh, but I also wanted to say that depending on your water source, there can be additional treatments or slightly varied treatments on the process that the water district does, just because different areas have different levels, have different things they need to deal with. Our earth is really diverse, and sometimes, you know, our soil is going to be made a little bit different, and it can contribute different things to the water. So the scientists at the Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, they make sure that whatever specific constituent is inside of the water that shouldn't be there, it's going to get removed before it ever makes its way to your house. So these are more like the general steps that your Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District does in order to make sure that your water is clean, fresh, and healthy. So thinking back about that question that we asked earlier, right? A lot of people were saying that that water wasn't healthy. Well, if we would just take that water straight from those sources, it is fresh water, but it doesn't meet the freshwater standards that we have for drinking water. So after it goes through these 5 different steps, at the end, you better believe that it's clean and fresh water, guaranteed to help you stay happy, healthy, and hydrated. So let's look at these 5 steps. Let's just refresh our memory. Adding dissolved oxygen, we call it DO. That's going to make our water taste better. Everybody got that one? Let's lock it in. Perfect. Sedimentation. Sedimentation is going to be to let time pass by to allow those larger particles to sink down to the bottom all by themselves. Next step is going to be coagulation. Now, coagulation and sedimentation, they're kind of tricky because they're very similar in the explanation, but you remember with coagulation, we actually add a coagulant that makes the particles of dust and dirt and the other litter clump and stick together. So sedimentation happens all by itself because of gravity, and coagulation happens because of that coagulant that we mixed up, and it has different properties that help the materials clump together. And then we have disinfection, when we add disinfectants such as chlorine, chloramine, or that ferric chloride to kill any harmful germs. And then filtration, of removing any of the solids that we have by pushing water through the materials that trap the solids but let the water pass through. So we are going to play a game. Oh, yes. Thank you, AC. You're making your little cliff notes there. I like that mentality. So we're going to play a game. It's called You Are the Water Scientist, right? So we're going to take this role of this STEM career about working in a water treatment plant, right? We are going to be the water scientist, and we need to put together these 5 different steps in the correct order. Now, the way that we're going to do this, we're going to go to this external site that I have here. It's actually a pretty cool site. It's called Scratch. It's a site that I use all the time to teach people how to learn coding. So if that's something you're interested in, you can always check it out. It's a free site. So we're going to read the directions like everything before we get started, because we're scientists, we make observations and we follow directions. There is a link, my friend. Let me go ahead and share it with you. Here we go. I'll send it to everyone. And you should be able to play the game. You don't need to make an account or anything. Ooh, and I see other people have used Scratch to make the games for the water district. Perfect. Yeah, Scratch is an excellent resource. If you haven't gotten into it, I've made different projects on here, but today we're going to be focusing on this one, right? On how to be a water scientist. So we're going to click start, and then you can see here it has step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. Right now we have dirty water. Do we want dirty water coming to our houses? What do you think? Yes or no? I don't know about you, but I want clean water, right? So I don't want this dirty water coming to our house. So let's go ahead and see if we can put these in the correct order. Ooh, Mark, you want to share yours? Ooh, maybe, yeah, if we have time, I think that would be pretty awesome so that we can collaborate and see how we can learn from each other. But let's go ahead and say here, does anybody think they know the first step? Now, you really have to think critically here because we want to think about how we would go removing the contaminants. So usually when you clean up like anything in your house, do you want to start cleaning the big items or the small items first? What do you think? And that's going to help us figure out what of the steps go first. Does anyone have an idea which step might be first? Let it all sit there. Okay, maybe the big ones. So it's either you think it might be sedimentation. Remember, sedimentation and coagulation are kind of the same. So do you think that we want to add a coagulant first to filter out those larger materials, or have it happen by itself because of gravity? I just need to choose one. Is it either coagulation or sedimentation? Oh, and someone thinks it's add DO first. Okay, Angel, I liked how you were very decisive. So that's what we're going to pretend it goes first there. This is just a hypothesis. So we're not sure if that's true. So what would be the second step? What do you think? Anyone? I know someone said like, let it all sit there. So did you mean sedimentation maybe? Yeah, okay, let's go with sedimentation. So after that, we have 3 more steps: coagulation, filtration, and disinfection. Which one do you think might be next? Well, if you remember, column maid, unfortunately, my friends, the maid isn't gonna know how to clean our water. They might know how to clean our room. And actually, but though, if the maid came to this session, they would know how to clean our water, but that's not their level of expertise. Oh, so Yoshi says coagulation. Okay. Then we have 2 steps now: filtration or disinfection. This was tricky. But think about your life experience, right? Filtration, if I can do that in my home, maybe that's the last step. And then disinfection can go here. Did we get clean water? Uh-oh. Our water's still dirty, my friends. So unfortunately, we don't have the correct order here. Now I'm going to remove everything that's incorrect. So dissolved oxygen is not the first step. Sedimentation actually is the second step. Congratulations. Disinfection is not the third step. And coagulation is not the 4th step. And filtration is not the 5th step. So let's go ahead and try this one more time, my friends. Now, if sedimentation is the second one, I think we can make a hypothesis that coagulation would be the first one, because that's going to remove the larger pieces. So coagulation, sedimentation, And then which one do you think is next? If we've removed now most of the particles and we want to just get rid of those tiny particles, ooh, Angel, yes, filtration is going to be the next step here. Fantastic. And now we just have two, disinfection and dissolved oxygen addition. So remember, when we add dissolved oxygen, we do it for taste, and disinfection, we do it to remove contaminants. So this is, I feel like it's more aesthetic. It's something that we do extra just to make sure that everybody gets clean and fresh water. Oh, are you ready? Do you see, is it gonna be clean? Dun, 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 dun. We did it, my friends. We were able to make clean water. This clean water now would be delivered nice and fresh to each and every one of your houses. Now you might wonder though, after you use this clean water, what happens to it, right? Well, after you use the water in your house, it's actually going to be cleaned and repurposed for many different things, all except drinking. So my friends, it looks like, Mark, unfortunately, I ran out of time a little bit, and I don't, maybe if Caitlin says it's okay, we can share your Scratch project as well. But for my time slot, we are all done. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and sharing your ideas in our chat today. I learned super much with you. I hope you learned super much with me. Feel free to continue playing that game. It's going to be live from now until forever. So keep practicing how we can clean our water.